FTC could make its filing. And
thank you, Cookie. Oh, jeez. I've been muted that whole time. Like an hour and 30 minutes.
You're welcome, hee hee.
Thank you, thank you. Oh my gosh. Isn't there a purple gun? Oh, there it is. Oh, hello. Oh, there was behind me and in front of me. Son of a bee. Son of a bee. I had a sweet snipe on somebody. The fuck are these people doing? Did you get some rest, Cookie?
Are you playing with controller or KBM?
KBM. don't want to fight. Shit, fuck, 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 fuck. The same fucking anonymous 351. How the fuck are they anonymous?
Fortnite.
Hey, Survivor, I haven't seen you in forever, man. How you doing?
Fortnite.
Very good.
There is no need to donate more than 5 bits at a time. I appreciate your company more.
Ain't that the truth? What the fuck? Why is it taking so long?
Fortnite. Fortnite.
How are you doing there, Survivor? How are you?
Good.
Good. I've missed you,
How
man.
about you?
I'm doing okay.
Please follow my other socials. Hupslone K Bionot Matcha. Lost my password for Twitch, but I finally found it again.
Hey. Well, you can whisper it to me if you want me to remind you. It's okay.
Hey there, I am writing to propose a collaboration opportunity that I believe could mutually benefit you as a streamer. My goal is to help Tal. It is a bot, OMG.
Indeed, I get those a lot. Where would I picked? Shields, I think.
Hey there, do you want to grow your audience?
No. Oh my god, get out of the shit. What the fuck? How did they pick up the weapon before me? This game's stupid as fuck. I hate this shit. Did I not get there first? How the fuck did they?
Well, just put your Fortnite password, Google password, email address, home address, social security number, banking information.
I'm sitting there holding, like, tapping E like a motherfucker.
Loudest white noise I have ever heard.
Really?
Now it's fine.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I am here for one reason, and that reason is to abuse TPS. Said apps CZZZ. Nadine Fayasiain. We GHJKLHKJHKJHHFGHFG. There is no need to donate more than 5 bits at a time. I appreciate your company more. You died to a turtle.
Why the fuck is he still there? But it was a Teenage Mutant Ninja.
Yeah, but it was still a turtle.
A ninja. Did you see how sneaky he was?
You know what it also was?
What?
A turtle.
Yeah, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. Yeah, I get that.
Anyways, I have some very important questions to ask you.
Ask away.
Number 1. What is Obama's last name?
Obama?
Nice.
The hell kind of questions?
Question 2. What is the color of a tree? Please follow my other socials, Sloan K. Bionot Matcha.
What kind of tree? What kind of tree we talking about here? We talking about the trunk of the tree? Or the leaves of a tree?
The leaves.
Well, it depends on which season it is. And, because they could be green or like orange or brown, you know?
Whatever. At Survivor 051 you leveled up to level 2. Question number 3. What level am I?
Level 2, of course. Oh shit. That's not what I meant to do.
Question 4. What is my favorite number? You only have one guess, choose wisely.
Oh, goddamn stupid fucking game, man. How do you leave the game? What the fuck? Why do I have to see 8 menus?
The wasn't nice words.
Sorry, Survivor. Your favorite number is 51.
Wrong.
Oh, okay. Uh, 051.
My favorite number is yellow.
The fuck you talking about? Why is this so fucking bullshit?
051 is my favorite letter of the alphabet.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Good guess though.
Why, thank you.
Moving on.
Okay. Is it searching or not? I'm so confused. What the fuck is happening right now?
Question 5 Fortnite Player of the Year. Please follow my other socials Slonke by Anat Matcha. Do you like my quiz?
I love, yeah, it was a great quiz. It was so good.
Fine, I'll give you a harder question. Name 3 countries that start with the letter N.
God, I just want to shoot the drones down. What the fuck is this bullshit, man? This game's stupid as fuck. So stupid. 3 countries that start with the letter A. Countries? Countries.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. What about, is Algeria a country? I think that's a country. What about?
Yeah.
Let's go with
13.
Let's go with and we're sure that they're 3. There's probably like 20. Let's see. Argentina. Oh,
Albania,
that's 2.
Australia, Austria, Angola, Argentina. There is so many, bro.
Dude, I just did Argentina. Calm down. And why are you stealing Austria from me? And Australia, dude. That's a lot of them.
23.
You can't just be listing them off. That takes away the ones that I can get. You know what I'm saying?
You lodger.
I water.
Also, question 7. Fortnite Player of Year. You have 20 seconds to answer.
Okay, what's the question?
Fortnite Player of the Year.
Oh, is that the, like, who is the Fortnite Player of the Year? I thought you were calling me the Fortnite Player of the Year. Why am I... Jesus.
Fortnite Player of the Year. 10. 9.
Dude, I have no idea. I don't know who any of the Fortnite players are.
7.
Survivor? I don't know. I give up.
Me neither.
Oh.
6. 'Cality is Fortnire.
Did it! I finally did it!
Also, I saw you got a sub 50 or sub 40. Congrats on that.
What? Oh yeah, I got like a 32 or something. I got a sub 20 FSG also.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Easy job.
Thank you, thank you.
Not a lot of water in it when I say this, but you are now 3rd place Xbox.
Hey, let's go.
Anyways, IGTG bye.
Okay, bye. Thanks for stopping by, man. Please come back.
Also, one more question.
What's up?
True or false, ball 869?
True. Definitely true.
Correct. Car. I am not of the legal age to drive a car.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
There is no need to donate more than 5 bits at a time. I appreciate your company more.
God damn it.
What?
Oh, shit. God damn it. Get the fuck away. What the fuck, man? I'm just trying to drive
Wrong
away
way.
from the motherfucker. Fuck you, you cunt. How do I escape this shit?
Who is Ass Rock? Music.
Oh, God. Dude, what the fuck? Get the fuck out of here. I'm just trying to drive past the motherfucker. I don't even want to fight him. Oh, cunt. Why are you awake right now, Survivor? Jesus Christ.
True or fastly, Stoller is funny.
Who the fuck is Krampus?
I don't know why are you awake.
I should probably go to sleep. I am really tired.
Smee. GN.
Okay, yeah, same here. Fucking, I'm playing like shit anyway.
Wait, one last question.
Okay. What's the question, homie?
Am I faster than you at Tetris?
Oh, I have no idea. Probably.
Wait, holy shit.
Oh.
NVM, you're way better.
Hey, let's go.
Please follow my other socials Sloank by Anat Matcha. I think my fastest time to get 40 lines was like 145.
Oh, no, that's faster than me. Mine's 20. Or mine's like 2 minutes. Just over 2 minutes.
P. Anyway, see, bye.
Alright, take care, man. Thanks for stopping by again. Oh, no, I'm messing up. Oh my god. Oh my god. I just need one more line that whole time. I just need one more line that whole time. It's out of control.
Chapter 17 of Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. I now fell into a regular routine of apprenticeship life, which was varied beyond the limits of the village and the marshes, by no more remarkable circumstances than the arrival of my birthday and my paying another visit to Miss Havisham. I found Miss Sarah Pocket still on duty at the gate. I found Miss Havisham just as I had left her, and she spoke of Estella in the very same way, if not in the very same words. The interview lasted but a few minutes, and she gave me a guinea when I was going, and told me to come again on my next birthday. I may mention at once that this became an annual custom. I tried to decline taking the guinea on the first occasion, but with no better effect than causing her to ask me very angrily if I expected more. Then, after that, I took it. So unchanging was the dull old house, the yellow light in the darkened room, the faded spectre in the chair by the dressing table glass, that I felt as if the stopping of the clocks had stopped time in that mysterious place, and while I and everything else outside it grew older, it stood still. Daylight never entered the house as to my thoughts and remembrances of it, any more than as to the actual fact. It bewildered me, and under its influence I continued at heart to hate my trade and be ashamed of home. Imperceptibly, I became conscious of a change in Biddy. However, her shoes came up at the heel, her hair grew bright and neat, her hands were always clean. She was not beautiful, she was common and could not be like Estella, but she was pleasant and wholesome and sweet-tempered. She had not been with us more than a year. I remember her being newly out of mourning at the time, it struck me, when I observed to myself one evening that she had curiously thoughtful and attentive eyes that were very pretty and very good. It came of my lifting up my own eyes from a task I was poring at, writing some passages from a book to improve myself in two ways at once by a sort of stratagem, and seeing Biddy observant of what I was about, I laid down my pen, and Biddy stopped in her needlework without laying it down. "Biddy," said I, "how do you manage it? Either I am very stupid or you are very clever." "What is it that I manage? I don't know," returned Biddy, smiling. She managed our whole domestic life, and wonderfully too. But I did not mean that, though that made what I did mean more surprising. "How do you manage, Biddy," said I, "to learn everything that I learn, and always to keep up with me?" I was beginning to be rather vain of my knowledge, for I spent my birthday guineas on it and set aside the greater part of my pocket money for similar investment, though I have no doubt now that the little I knew was extremely dear at the price. "I might as well ask you," said Biddy, "how you manage." "No, because when I come in from the forge of a night, anyone can see me turning to at it, but you never turn to at it, Biddy." "I suppose I must catch it like a cough," said Biddy quietly, and went on with her sewing. Pursuing my idea, as I leaned back in my wooden chair and looked at Biddy sewing away with her head on one side, I began to think her rather an extraordinary girl, for I called to mind now that she was equally accomplished in the terms of our trade and the names of our different sorts of work and our various tools. In short, whatever I knew, Biddy knew. Theoretically, she was already as good a blacksmith as I, or better. "You are one of those, Biddy," said I, "who make the most of every chance. You never had a chance before you came here, and see how improved you are." Biddy looked at me for an instant and went on with her sewing. "I was your first teacher, though, wasn't I?" said she as she sewed. "Biddy!" I exclaimed in amazement. "Why, you are crying." "No, I'm not," said Biddy, looking up and laughing. "What put that in your head?" What could have put it in my head but the glistening of a tear as it dropped on her work? I sat silent, recalling what a drudge she had been, until Mr. Wopsle's great arm successfully overcome that bad habit of living, so highly desirable to get rid of by some people. I recalled the hopeless circumstances by which she had been surrounded in the miserable little shop, and the miserable little noisy evening school, with that miserable old bundle of incompetence always to be dragged and shouldered. I reflected that even in those untoward times there must have been latent in Biddy what was now developing, for in my first uneasiness and discontent I had turned to her for help as a matter of course. Biddy sat quietly sewing, shedding no more tears, and when I looked at her and thought about it, it occurred to me that perhaps I had not been sufficiently grateful to Biddy. I might have been too reserved, and should have patronized her more, though I did not use that precise word in my meditations, with my confidence. "Yes, Biddy," I observed, when I had done turning it over, "you were my first teacher, and that at a time when we little thought of ever being together like this in this kitchen." "Ah, poor thing," replied Biddy. It was like her self-forgetfulness to transfer the remark to my sister, and to get up and be busy about her, making her more comfortable. "That's sadly true." "Well," said I, "we must talk together a little more, as we used to do, and I must consult you a little more, as I used to do. Let us have a quiet walk on the marshes next Sunday, Biddy, and a long chat." My sister was never left alone now, but Joe more than readily undertook the care of her on that Sunday afternoon, and Biddy and I went out together. It was summer time, and lovely weather. When we had passed the village and the church and the churchyard, and we were out on the marshes, and I began to see the sails of the ships as they sailed on, I began to combine Miss Havisham and Estella with the prospect in my usual way. When we came to the riverside and sat down on the bank with the water rippling at our feet, making it all the more quiet than it would have been without that sound, I resolved that it was a good time and place for the admission of Biddy into my inner confidence. Biddy, said I, after binding her to secrecy, I want to be a gentleman. Oh, I wouldn't if I was you, she returned. I don't think it would answer. Biddy, said I, with some severity, I have particular reasons for wanting to be a gentleman. You know best, Pip, but don't you think you are happier as you are? Biddy, I exclaimed impatiently, I am not at all happy as I am. I am disgusted with my calling, with my life. I have never taken to either since I was bound. Don't be absurd. Was I absurd? Said Biddy quietly, raising her eyebrows. I'm sorry for that. I didn't mean to be. I only want you to do well and to be comfortable. Well, understand once and for all that I never shall or can be comfortable or anything but miserable. There, Biddy, unless I can lead a very different sort of life than the life I lead now. That's a pity, said Biddy, shaking her head with a sorrowful air. Now I too had often thought it a pity that in the singular kind of quarrel with myself which I was always carrying on, I was half inclined to shed tears of vexation and distress when Biddy gave utterance to her sentiment and my own. I told her she was right, and I knew it was much to be regretted, but still it was not to be helped. If I could have settled down, I said to Biddy, plucking up the short grass within reach, much as I'd once upon a time pulled my feelings out of my hair and kicked them into the brewery wall, if I could have settled down and been but half as fond of the forge as I was when I was little, I know it would have been much better for me. You and I and Joe would have wanted nothing then, and Joe and I would have perhaps gone partners when I was out of my time, and I might even have grown up to keep company with you, and we might have sat on this very bank on a fine Sunday, quite different people. I should have been good enough for you, shouldn't I, Biddy? Biddy sighed as she looked at the ship sailing on, and returned for answer, yes, I'm not over particular. It scarcely sounded flattering, but I knew she meant well. Instead of that, said I, plucking up more grass and chewing a blade or two, see how I'm going on, dissatisfied and uncomfortable, and what would it signify to me being coarse and common if nobody had told me so? Biddy turned her face towards mine and looked far more attentively at me than she had looked at the sailing ships. It was neither a very true nor a very polite thing to say, she remarked, directing her eyes to the ships again. Who said it? I was disconcerted, for I had broken away without quite seeing where I was going to. It was not to be shuffled off now, however, and I answered, the beautiful young lady at Miss Havisham's, and she's more beautiful than anybody ever was, and I admire her dreadfully, and I want to be a gentleman on her account. Having made this lunatic confession, I began to throw my torn-up grass into the river, as if I had some thoughts of following it. Do you want to be a gentleman to spite her, or to gain her over? Biddy quietly asked me after a pause. I don't know, I moodily answered. Because if it's to spite her, Biddy pursued, I should think, but you know best, that might be better and more independently done by caring nothing for her words. And if it's to gain her over, I should think, but you know best, she was not worth gaining over. Exactly what myself had thought many times, exactly what was perfectly manifest to me at this moment. But how could I, a poor dazed village lad, avoid that wonderful inconsistency into which the best and wisest of men fall every day? It may be all quite true, said I to Biddy, but I admire her dreadfully. In short, I turned over on my face when I came to that, and got a good grasp on the hair on each side of my head, and wrenched it well, all the while knowing the madness of my heart to be so very mad and misplaced, that I was quite conscious that it would have served my face right if I had lifted it up by my hair and knocked it against the pebbles as a punishment for belonging to such an idiot. Biddy was the wisest of girls, and she tried to reason no more with me. She put her hand, which was a comfortable hand though roughened by work, upon my hands one after another, and gently took them out of my hair. Then she softly patted my shoulder in a soothing way, while with my face upon my sleeve I cried a little, exactly as I had done in the brewery yard, and felt vaguely convinced that I was very much ill-used by somebody, or by everybody, I can't say which. I'm glad of one thing, said Biddy, and that is that you have felt you could give me your confidence, Pip. And I am glad of another thing, and that is that of course you know you may depend upon my keeping it, and always so far deserving it. If your first teacher, dear, such a poor one and so much in need of being taught herself, had been your teacher at the present time, she thinks she knows what lesson she would set. It would be a hard one to learn, and you have got beyond her, and it's of no use now. So with a quiet sigh for me, Biddy rose from the bank and said with a fresh and pleasant change of voice, shall we walk a little further or go home? Biddy, I cried, getting up, putting my arm around her neck and giving her a kiss. I shall always tell you everything. Till you're a gentleman, said Biddy. You know I never shall be, so that's always. Not that I have any occasion to tell you anything, for you know everything I know, as I told you at home the other night. Ah, said Biddy quite in a whisper, as she looked away at the ships, and then repeated with her former pleasant change, shall we walk a little further or go home? I said to Biddy we would walk a little further, and we did so, and the summer afternoon toned down into the summer evening, and it was very beautiful, and I began to consider whether I was not more naturally and wholesomely situated, after all, in these circumstances, than playing beggar my neighbour by candlelight in the room with the stopped clocks, and being despised by Estella. I thought it would be very good for me if I could get her out of my head with all the rest of those remembrances and fancies, and could go to work determined to relish what I had to do, and stick to it, and make the best of it. I asked myself the question whether I did not surely know that if Estella were beside me at that moment instead of Biddy, she would make me miserable. I was obliged to admit that I did not know it for a certainty, and I said to myself, Pip, what a fool you are. We talked a good deal as we walked, and all that Biddy said seemed right. Biddy was never insulting or capricious, or Biddy today and somebody else tomorrow. She would have derived only pain and no pleasure from giving me pain. She would far rather have wounded her own breast than mine. How could it be then that I did not like her much the better of the two? Biddy, said I when we were walking homeward, I wish you could put me right. I wish I could, said Biddy. If I could only get myself to fall in love with you, you don't mind me speaking so openly to such an old acquaintance. Oh dear, not at all, said Biddy, don't mind me. If I could only get myself to do it, that would be the thing for me. But you never will, you see, said Biddy. It did not appear quite so unlikely to me that evening, as it would have done if we had discussed it a few hours before. Therefore I observed I was not quite sure of that. But Biddy said she was, and she said it decisively. In my heart I believed it to be right, and yet I took it rather ill too that she should be so positive on the point. When we came near the churchyard, we had to cross an embankment and get over a stile near a sluice gate. There, started up from the gate, or from the rushes, or from the ooze, which was quite in his stagnant way, old Orlick. "Halloa," he growled, "where are you two going?" "Where should we be going but home?" "Well then," said he, "I'm jiggered if I don't see you home." This penalty of being jiggered was a favourite supposititious case of his. He attached no definite meaning to the word that I'm aware of, but used it like his own pretended Christian name, to affront mankind and convey an idea of something savagely damaging. When I was younger, I had a general belief that if he had jiggered me personally, he would have done it with a sharp and twisted hook. Biddy was much against his going with us and said to me in a whisper, "Don't let him come. I don't like him." As I did not like him either, I took the liberty of saying we thanked him, but we didn't want seeing home. He received that piece of information with a yell of laughter, and dropped back, but came slouching after us at a little distance. Curious to know whether Biddy suspected him of having had a hand in that murderous attack of which my sister had never been able to give any account, I asked her why she did not like him. "Oh," she replied, glancing over her shoulder as he slouched after us, "because I'm afraid he likes me." "Did he ever tell you he liked you?" I asked indignantly. "No," said Biddy, glancing over her shoulder again. He never told me so, but he dances at me whenever he can catch my eye. However novel and peculiar this testimony of attachment, I did not doubt the accuracy of the interpretation. It was very hot indeed upon old Orlick's daring to admire her, as hot as if it were an outrage on myself. But it makes no difference to you, you know, said Biddy kindly. No, Biddy, it makes no difference to me, only I don't like it. I don't approve of it. Nor I either, said Biddy, for that makes it no difference to you. Exactly, said I, but I must tell you that I should have no opinion of you, Biddy, if he danced at you with your own consent. I kept an eye on Orlick after that night, and whenever circumstances were favourable to his dancing at Biddy, I got before him to obscure that demonstration. He had struck root in Joe's establishment by reason of my sister's sudden fancy for him, or I should have tried to get him dismissed. He quite understood and reciprocated my good intentions, as I had reason to know thereafter. And now, because my mind was not confused enough before I complicated its confusion 50,000-fold by having states and seasons, when I was clear that Biddy was immeasurably better than Estella, and that the plain, honest working life to which I was born had nothing in it to be ashamed of, but offered me sufficient means of self-respect and happiness. At those times I would decide conclusively that my disaffection to dear old Joe and the forge was gone, and that I was growing up in a fair way to be partners with Joe and to keep company with Biddy, when all in a moment some confounding remembrance of the Havisham days would fall upon me like a destructive missile and scatter my wits again. Scattered wits take a long time picking up, and often before I had got them well together they would be dispersed in all directions by one stray thought that perhaps after all Miss Havisham was going to make my fortune when my time was out. If my time had run out, it would have left me still at the height of my perplexities, I dare say. It never did run out, however, but was brought to a premature end as I proceed to relate. End of chapter 17. Chapter 18 of Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. It was in the 4th year of my apprenticeship to Joe, and it was a Saturday night. There was a group assembled round the fire at the Three Jolly Bargemen, attentive to Mr. Wopsle as he read the newspaper aloud. Of that group I was one. A highly popular murder had been committed, and Mr. Wopsle was imbrued in blood to the eyebrows. He gloated over every abhorrent objective in the description, and identified himself with every witness at the inquest. He faintly moaned, "I am done for," as the victim, and he barbarously bellowed, "I'll serve you out," as the murderer. He gave the medical testimony in pointed imitation of our local practitioner, and he piped and shook as the aged turnpike keeper who had heard blows to an extent so very paralytic as to suggest a doubt regarding the mental competency of that witness. The coroner in Mr. Wopsle's hands became Timon of Athens, the beadle Coriolanus. He enjoyed himself thoroughly, and we all enjoyed ourselves, and were delightfully comfortable. In this cosy state of mind we came to the verdict, wilful murder. Then, and not sooner, I became aware of a strange gentleman leaning over the back of the settle opposite me, looking on. There was an expression of contempt on his face, and he bit the side of a great forefinger as he watched the group of faces. "Well," said the stranger to Mr. Wopsle when the reading was done, "you have settled it to all your own satisfaction, I have no doubt." Everybody started and looked up, as if it were the murderer. He looked at everybody coldly and sarcastically. "Guilty, of course," said he. "Out with it, come." "Sir," returned Mr. Wopsle, "without having the honour of your acquaintance, I do say guilty." Upon this we all took courage to unite in a confirmatory murmur. "I know you do," said the stranger. "I knew you would, I told you so, but now I'll ask you a question. Do you know, or do you not know, that the law of England supposes every man to be innocent until he is proved to be guilty. Sir, Mr. Wopsle began to reply. As an Englishman myself, I... Come, said the stranger, biting his forefinger at him. Don't evade the question. Either you know it or you don't know it. Which is it to be? He stood with his head on one side and himself on one side in a bullying, interrogative manner, and he threw his forefinger at Mr. Wopsle, as it were, to mark him out before biting it again. Now, said he, do you know it or don't you know it? Certainly I know it, replied Mr. Wopsle. Certainly you know it, then. Why didn't you say so at first? Now I'll ask you another question, taking possession of Mr. Wopsle as if he had a right to him. Do you know that none of these witnesses have yet been cross-examined? Mr. Wopsle was beginning, I can only say, when the stranger stopped him. What? You won't answer the question, yes or no? Now I'll try you again. Throwing his finger at him again, attend to me. Are you aware, or are you not aware, that none of these witnesses have yet been cross-examined? Come, I only want one word from you, yes or no? Mr. Wopsle hesitated, and we all began to conceive a rather poor opinion of him. Come, said the stranger, I'll help you. You don't deserve help, but I'll help you. Look at that paper you hold in your hand. What is it? What is it? Repeated Mr. Wopsle, eyeing it much at a loss. Is it, pursued the stranger in his most sarcastic and suspicious manner, the printed paper you have just been reading from? Undoubtedly. Undoubtedly. Now turn to that paper and tell me whether it distinctly states that the prisoner expressly said that his legal advisers instructed him altogether to reserve his defence. I read that just now, Mr. Wopsle pleaded. Never mind what you read just now, sir. I don't ask what you read just now. You may read the Lord's Prayer backwards if you like, and perhaps have done it before today. Turn to the paper. No, no, my friend, not to the top of the column. You know better than that. To the bottom. To the bottom. We all began to think Mr. Wopsle full of subterfuge. Well, have you found it? Here it is, said Mr. Wopsle. Now follow that passage with your eye and tell me whether it distinctly states that the prisoner expressly said that he was instructed by his legal advisers wholly to reserve his defence. Come, do you make that of it? Mr. Wopsle answered, those are not the exact words. Not the exact words, repeated the gentleman bitterly. Is that the exact substance? Yes, said Mr. Wopsle. Yes, repeated the stranger, looking round at the rest of the company, with his right hand extended towards the witness, Wopsle. And now I ask you what you say to the conscience of that man who, with that passage before his eyes, can lay his head upon his pillow after having pronounced a fellow creature guilty, unheard. We all began to suspect that Mr. Wopsle was not the man we had thought him, and that he was beginning to be found out. And that same man, remember, pursued the gentleman, throwing his finger at Mr. Wopsle heavily, that same man might be summoned as a juryman upon this very trial, and having thus deeply committed himself, might return to the bosom of his family and lay his head upon his pillow, after deliberately swearing that he would well and truly try the issue joined between our sovereign lord the king and the prisoner at the bar, and would a true verdict give according to the evidence, so help him God. We were all deeply persuaded that the unfortunate Wopsle had gone too far, and had better stop in his reckless career while there was yet time. The strange gentleman, with an air of authority not to be disputed, and with a manner expressive of knowing something secret about every one of us, that would effectually do for each individual if he chose to disclose it, left the back of the settle and came into the space between the two settles in front of the fire, where he remained standing, his left hand in his pocket, and he biting the forefinger of his right. From information I have received, said he, looking round at us, we all quailed before him. I have reason to believe there is a blacksmith among you by name of Joseph or Joe Gargery. Which is the man? Here is the man, said Joe. The strange gentleman beckoned him out of his place, and Joe went. You have an apprentice, pursued the stranger, commonly known as Pitt. Is he here? I am here, I cried. The stranger did not recognise me, but I recognised him as the gentleman I had met on the stairs on the occasion of my second visit to Miss Havisham. I had known him the moment I saw him looking over the settle, and now that I stood confronting him with his hand upon my shoulder, I checked off again in detail his large head, his dark complexion, his deep-set eyes, his bushy black eyebrows, his large watch chain, his strong black dots of beard and whisker, and even the smell of scented soap on his great hand. "I wish to have a private conference with you two," said he, when he had surveyed me at his leisure. "It will take a little time. Perhaps we had better go to your place of residence. I prefer not to anticipate my communication here. You will impart as much or as little of it as you please to your friends afterwards. I have nothing to do with that." Amidst a wondering silence, we three walked out of the Jolly Bargeman, and in a wondering silence walked home. While going along, the strange gentleman occasionally looked at me and occasionally bit the side of his finger. As we neared home, Joe, vaguely acknowledging the occasion as an impressive and ceremonious one, went on ahead to open the front door. Our conference was held in the state parlour, which was feebly lighted by one candle. It began with the strange gentleman sitting down at the table, drawing the candle to him and looking over some entries in his pocket-book. He then put up the pocket-book and set the candle a little aside after peering round it into the darkness at Joe and me to ascertain which was which. "My name," he said, "is Jaggers, and I am a lawyer in London. I am pretty well known. I have unusual business to transact with you, and I commence by explaining that it is not of my originating. If my advice had been asked, I should not have been here. It was not asked, and you see me here. What I have to do as the confidential agent of another, I do. No less, no more." Finding that he could not see us very well from where he sat, he got up and threw one leg over the back of a chair and leaned upon it, thus having one foot on the seat of the chair and one foot on the ground. "Now, Joseph Gargery, I am the bearer of an offer to relieve you of this young fellow, your apprentice. You would not object to cancel his indentures at his request and for his good. You would want nothing for so doing." "Lord forbid that I should want anything for not standing in Pip's way," said Joe, staring. "Lord forbidding is pious, but not to the purpose," returned Mr. Jaggers. "The question is, would you want anything? Do you want anything?" "The answer is," returned Joe sternly, "no." I thought Mr. Jaggers glanced at Joe as if he considered him a fool for his disinterestedness, but I was too much bewildered between breathless curiosity and surprise to be sure of it. "Very well," said Mr. Jaggers. "Recollect the admission you have made, and don't try to go from it presently." "Who's a going to try?" retorted Joe. "I don't say anybody is. You keep a dog?" "Yes, I do keep a dog." "Bear in mind, then, that Bragg is a good dog, but Holdfast is a better. Bear in mind, will you?" repeated Mr. Jaggers, shutting his eyes and nodding his head at Joe, as if he were forgiving him something. "Now I return to this young fellow, and the communication I have got to make is that he has great expectations." Joe and I gasped and looked at one another. "I am instructed to communicate to him," said Mr. Jaggers, throwing his finger at me sideways, "that he will come into a handsome property. Further, that it is the desire of the present possessor of that property that he should be immediately removed from his present sphere of life and from this place, and be brought up as a gentleman, in a word, as a young fellow of great expectations." My dream was out. My wild fancy was surpassed by sober reality. Miss Havisham was going to make my fortune on a grand scale. "Now, Mr. Pip," pursued the lawyer, "I address the rest of what I have to say to you. You are to understand, first, that it is the request of the person from whom I take my instructions that you always bear the name of Pip. You will have no objection, I dare say, to your great expectations being encumbered with that easy condition. But if you have any objection, this is the time to mention it." My heart was beating so fast, and there was such a singing in my ears, that I could scarcely stammer. I had no objection. "I should think not. Now you are to understand, secondly, Mr. Pitt, that the name of the person who is your liberal benefactor remains a profound secret until the person chooses to reveal it. I am empowered to mention that it is the intention of the person to reveal it at first hand by word of mouth to yourself. When or where that intention may be carried out, I cannot say. No one can say. It may be years hence. Now you are distinctly to understand that you are most positively prohibited from making any inquiry on this head, or any allusion or reference, however distant, to any individual whomsoever, as the individual in all the communications you may have with me. If you have suspicion in your own breast, keep that suspicion in your own breast. It is not the least to the purpose what reasons of this prohibition are. They may be the strongest and gravest reasons, or they may be mere whim. This is not for you to inquire into. The condition is laid down. Your acceptance of it and your observance of it as binding is the only remaining condition that I am charged with by the person from whom I take my instructions, and for whom I am not otherwise responsible. That person is the person from whom you derive your expectations, and the secret is solely held by that person and by me. Again, not a very difficult condition with which to encumber such a rise in fortune. But if you have any objection to it, this is the time to mention it. Speak out. Once more I stammered with difficulty that I had no objection. I should think not. Now, Mr. Pip, I have done with stipulations. Though he called me Mr. Pip and began rather to make up to me, he still could not get rid of a certain air of bullying suspicion, and even now he occasionally shut his eyes and threw his finger at me while he spoke, as much to express that he knew all kind of things to my disparagement, if he only chose to mention them. We come next to mere details of arrangement. You must know that although I have used the term expectations more than once, you are not endowed with expectations only. There is already lodged in my hand is a sum of money amply sufficient for your suitable education and maintenance. You will please consider me your guardian. Oh, for I was going to thank him. I tell you at once, I am paid for my services, or I shouldn't render them. It is considered that you must be better educated in accordance with your altered position, and that you will be alive to the importance and necessity of at once entering on that advantage. I said I had always longed for it. Never mind what you've always longed for, Mr. Pip, he retorted. Keep to the record. If you long for it now, that's enough. Am I answered that you are ready to be placed at once under some proper tutor? Is that it? I stammered yes, that was it. Good. Now your inclinations are to be consulted. I don't think that wise, mind, but it's my trust. Have you ever heard of any tutor whom you would prefer to another? I had never heard of any tutor but Biddy and Mr. Wopsle's great aunt, so I replied in the negative. There is a certain tutor of whom I have some knowledge who I think might suit the purpose, said Mr. Jaggers. I don't recommend him, observe, because I never recommend anybody. The gentleman I speak of is one Mr. Matthew Pocket. Ah, I caught at the name directly. Miss Havisham's relation. The Matthew whom Mr. and Mrs. Camilla had spoken of. The Matthew whose place was to be at Miss Havisham's head when she lay dead in her bride's dress on the bride's table. You know the name, said Mr. Jaggers, looking shrewdly at me and then shutting up his eyes while he waited for my answer. My answer was that I had heard of the name. Oh, said he, you have heard of the name, but the question is, what do you say of it? I said, or I tried to say, that I was much obliged to him for his recommendation. No, my young friend, he interrupted, shaking his great head very slowly. Recollect yourself. Not recollecting myself, I began again that I was much obliged to him for his recommendation. No, my young friend, he interrupted, shaking his head and frowning and smiling both at once. No, 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 it's very well done, but it won't do. You are too young to fix me with it. Recommendation is not the word, Mr. Pip. Try another. Correcting myself, I said that I was much obliged to him for his mention of Mr. Matthew Pocket. That's more like it, cried Mr. Jaggers. And, I added, I would gladly try that gentleman. Good. You'd better try him up at his own house. The way shall be prepared for you, and you can see his son first, who is in London. When will you come up to London? I said, glancing at Joe, who stood looking on motionless. but I supposed I could come directly. First, said Mr. Jaggers, you should have some new clothes to come in, and they should not be working clothes. Say this day week. You'll want some money. Shall I leave you 20 guineas? He produced a long purse with the greatest coolness and counted them out on the table and pushed them over to me. This was the first time he had taken his leg from the chair. He sat astride of the chair when he had pushed the money over, and sat swinging his purse and eyeing Joe. Well, Joseph Gargery, you look dumbfounded. I am, said Joe in a very decided manner. It was understood that you wanted nothing for yourself, remember? It were understood, said Joe, and it are understood, and it ever will be similar according. But what, said Mr. Jaggers, swinging his purse, what if it was in my instructions to make you a present as a compensation? As compensation for what? Joe demanded. For the loss of his services. Joe laid his hand upon my shoulder with the touch of a woman. I have often thought of him since, like the steam hammer that can crush a man or pat an eggshell, in his combination of strength with gentleness. Pip, is that hearty welcome, said Joe, to go free with his services, to honour and fortune. There's no words can tell him, but if you think as money can make compensation to me for the loss of a little child what come to the forge, and ever the best of friends. Oh dear good Joe, whom I was so ready to leave and so unthankful to. I see you again with your muscular blacksmith's arms before your eyes, and your broad chest heaving, and your voice dying away. Oh dear good faithful tender Joe, I feel the loving tremble of your hand upon my arm, as solemnly this day as if it had been the rustle of an angel's wing. But I encouraged Joe at the time. I was lost in the mazes of my future fortunes, and I could not retrace the bypaths we had trodden together. I begged Joe to be comforted, for, as he said, we had ever been the best of friends, and, as I said, we ever would be so. Joe scooped his eyes with his disengaged wrist, as if he were bent on gouging himself, but said not another word. Mr. Jaggers had looked on at this as one who recognised in Joe the village idiot, and in me his keeper. When it was over, he said, weighing in his hand the purse he had ceased to swing, Now, Joseph Gargery, I warn you this is your last chance. No half measures with me. If you mean to take a present that I have it in charge to make you, speak out, and you shall have it. If on the contrary you mean to say, Here, to his great amazement, he was stopped by Joe suddenly working round him with every demonstration of a fell pugilistic purpose. Which I mean to say, cried Joe, that if you come into my place bull-baiting and badgering me, come out, which I mean to say such as if you're a man, come on, which I mean to say what I say, I mean to say and stand by or fall by. I drew Joe away and he immediately became placable, merely stating to me in an obliging manner, and as a polite expostulatory notice to anyone whom it might happen to concern, that he were not going to be bull-baited and badgered in his own place. Mr. Jaggers had risen when Joe demonstrated, and had backed near the door, without evincing any inclination to come in again. Here he delivered his valedictory remarks. They were these. Well, Mr. Pip, I think the sooner you leave here, as you are to be a gentleman, the better. Let it stand for this day week, and you shall receive my printed address in the meantime. You can take a hackney coach at the stagecoach office in London, and come straight to me. Understand that I express no opinion one way or another on the trust I undertake. I am paid for undertaking it, and I do so now. Now understand that, finally. Understand that. He was throwing his finger at both of us, and I think would have gone on but for his seeming to think Joe dangerous and going off. Something came into my head which induced me to run after him as he was going down to the Jolly Bargeman, where he had left a hired carriage. I beg your pardon, Mr. Jaggers. Halloa, said he, facing round. What's the matter? I wish to be quite right, Mr. Jaggers, and to keep to your directions, so I thought I'd better ask. Would there be any objection to my taking leave of anyone I know about here before I go away? No, said he, looking as if he hardly understood me. I don't mean in the village only, but uptown. No, said he, no objection. I thanked him and ran home again. and there I found that Joe had already locked the front door and vacated the state parlour, and was seated by the kitchen fire with a hand on each knee, gazing intently at the burning coals. I too sat down before the fire and gazed at the coals, and nothing was said for a long time. My sister was in her cushioned chair in her corner, and Biddy sat at her needlework before the fire, and Joe sat next Biddy, and I sat next Joe in the corner opposite my sister. The more I looked into the glowing coals, the more incapable I became of looking at Joe. The longer the silence lasted, the more unable I felt to speak. At length I got out, "Joe, have you told Biddy?" "No, Pip," returned Joe, still looking at the fire and holding his knees tight as if he had private information that they intended to make off somewhere. "Which I left it to yourself, Pip. I would rather you told, Joe." "Pip's a gentleman of fortune, then," said Joe, "and God bless him in it." Biddy dropped her work and looked at me. Joe held his knees and looked at me. I looked at both of them. After a pause they both heartily congratulated me, but there was a certain touch of sadness in their congratulations that I rather resented. I took it upon myself to impress Biddy, and through Biddy, Joe, with the grave obligation I considered my friends under, to know nothing and say nothing about the maker of my fortune. It would all come out in good time, I observed, and in the meanwhile nothing was to be said, save that I had come into great expectations from a mysterious patron. Biddy nodded her head thoughtfully at the fire as she took up her work again, and said she would be very particular. And Joe, still detaining his knees, said, "Aye, I'll be cleverly particular, Pip." Then they congratulated me again, and went on to express so much wonder at the notion of my being a gentleman, while they didn't half like it. Infinite pains were then taken by Biddy to convey to my sister some idea of what had happened. To the best of my belief, those efforts entirely failed. She laughed and nodded her head a great many times, and even repeated after Biddy the words "Pip" and "property," but I doubt they had more meaning in them than an election cry, and I cannot suggest a darker picture of her state of mind. I never could have believed it without experience, but as Joe and Biddy became more at their cheerful ease again, I became quite gloomy. Dissatisfied with my fortune? Of course I could not be, but it is possible that I may have been, without quite knowing it, dissatisfied with myself. Anyhow, I sat with my elbow on my knee and my face upon my hand, looking into the fire, as those two talked about my going away, and about what they should do without me, and all that. And whenever I caught one of them looking at me, though never so pleasantly, and they often looked at me, particularly Biddy, I felt offended, as if they were expressing some mistrust of me, although heaven knows they never did by word or sign. At those times I would get up and look out at the door, for our kitchen door opened at once upon the night, and stood open on summer evenings to air the room. The very stars to which I then raised my eyes, I am afraid I took to be but poor and humble stars, for glittering on the rustic objects among which I had passed my life. "Saturday night," said I, when we sat at our supper of bread and cheese and beer. 5 more days, and then the day before the day, they'll go soon. "Yes, Pip," observed Joe, whose voice sounded hollow in his beer mug, "they'll soon go." Soon go," said Biddy. "I have been thinking, Joe, that when I go downtown on Monday and order my new clothes, I shall tell the tailor that I'll come and put them on there, or that I'll have them sent to Mr. Pumblechook's. It would be very disagreeable to be stared at by all the people here. Mr. and Mrs. Hubble might like to see you in your new genteel figure too, Pip," said Joe, industriously cutting his bread with his cheese on it in the palm of his left hand, and glancing at my untasted supper, as if he thought of the time when we used to compare slices. "So might Wopsle, and the Jolly Bargeman might take it as a compliment." "That's just what I don't want, Joe. They would make such a business of it, such a coarse and common business, that I couldn't bear myself." "Ah, that indeed, Pip," said Joe. "If you couldn't bear yourself," Biddy asked me here, as she sat holding my sister's plate, Have you thought about when you'll show yourself to Mr. Gargery and your sister and me? You will show yourself to us, won't you? Biddy, I returned with some resentment. You are so exceedingly quick that it is difficult to keep up with you. She always were quick, observed Joe. If you had waited another moment, Biddy, you would have heard me say that I should bring my clothes here in a bundle one evening, most likely on the evening before I go away. Biddy said no more. Handsomely forgiving her, I soon exchanged an affectionate good night with her and Joe and went up to bed. When I got into my little room, I sat down and took a long look at it. It was a mean little room that I should soon be parted from and raised above forever. It was furnished with fresh young remembrances too, and even at the same moment I fell into much the same confused division of mind between it and the better rooms to which I was going, as I had been in so often between the Forge and Miss Havisham's.
What's going
Biddy
on?
and Estella. The sun had been shining brightly all day on the roof of my attic, and the room was warm. As I put the window open...
What up? Oh, shit. Okay. Alright. Ooh. I was listening to Great Expectations while playing Tetris. How you doing?
Decent.
Got him. Nice.
Get any better since last time?
Oh, I think so. Although I'm really sleepy right now, so, so probably right now. Like, no, I don't think I have. Yeah, yeah, I'm really sleepy right now. Uh-oh. Yeah. I need to go. I was supposed to go to sleep hours ago.
I kinda ended up getting two problems with my playstyle due to playing too much while sleepy. Fixed one so far.
Oh. Oops. Oh yeah, this is not good. Oh my gosh. Why? Oh my gosh.
Remember to look at your next cue and where placing it will block.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, that's definitely good advice. What the fuck? Why has this happened to me? I keep getting kicked from games and shit.
You had a way out if you put the J on the left. There is no need to donate more than 5 bits at a time. I appreciate your company more.
Oh, really? I put the J on the left, you say? Let me see if I can...
It's something with Tetrio.
Oh, Oh, so what I would have put the line like way over on the right, and then do that. I was just watching that back. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Oh man, I gotta go to sleep. I'm going to sleep. But thanks for stopping by. Next time I'll be well rested and ready to talk.
If you put it on the left you would have got a Z next, which would have allowed you to downstack.
Nice. Nice. How you doing? You doing good, man?
As I said, decent.
No, I'm so sleepy I don't even remember that. Okay, I'm going to bed. Thanks for stopping by, man. I'll talk to you later. All right.
CYA.
All right, take care, man.